What's up guys, hello Kinjani, how's it brew? Today we're going to do a quick tutorial. I've been getting a lot of questions on people asking for advice on their photos and on the editing, so I thought let's do a quick tutorial on how to take your photos from good to great, and it's using one simple tool. I recently learned this tool and I've been using it on all my edits, and it just makes your photos pop. It just makes it look that much better, and it's the tone curve. So let's go straight into Lightroom. I've got a couple of photos here that we're going to edit on. Yeah, we can start with this photo. So over here we've got the tone curve. Okay, now it's important that start with the tone curve at the beginning of your edit. Don't start with your basics, okay, because one, the tone curve really takes the edit to the next level from the beginning, and secondly, it does play with your saturation a bit. So make sure that you only get to your saturation at the end of your edit. So if we take this photo, let's make a few control points. Okay, this is the most common one that I use. And let's start with our midtones. This is our midtones, our shadows, our highlights over here. So let's start with our midtones. And once you drag your mid-tone control point up, you'll see it starts popping already. You can even take it up a bit more. Now, what I usually like to do is take down my shadows a bit, just to make it a bit more. Now you can see this is a little bit too much. It just crushes my blacks a bit, but we'll get to that in a bit. I also like to take this control point up here with my shadows. It just gives that moody little feel. If you can see, it just adds that little bit extra in your edit. Yeah, so maybe you should just lift this a little bit and then see. So that's always important. No edit is ever going to be the same, so always look at your edit and see what you can do differently. Highlights I won't play around too much with at the moment. Now we can go into the basics. You can see here, let's start playing with those shadows a bit, just to bring out the legs a bit. Highlights, you can decide. Personally, I like it when the highlights are a bit blown out, but you can go for a darker feel if you want to. I also always love to play with the blacks, bring it down a bit, whites a bit up, and then play with your contrast a bit. Now this photo is a bit too dark, so I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit. Now you can see most of our editing is done already. The photo looks way better. If we press Y, we can see the before and after. It already looks better, but it just doesn't have that yet. So let's go to our vibrance and our saturation. Let's bring the vibrance a bit down, so saturation a bit down. Okay, it looks better, but I'm losing something. So let's rather go to our individual saturation panel. So I don't like the saturation of the shoelaces, so let's bring down yellow a bit. You can see like it does add a bit, as well as the legs is a bit too yellowish. So yellow and orange will bring that down, maybe a bit of the reds as well, and then we can bring up the aqua and the blue, so this stands out a bit more. Let's bring that a little bit up. Okay, so now we can see I'm pretty happy with that. The before and after, I mean, differs completely. But let's hop onto the next photo and I'll show you some other stuff as well. Let's go to this one. This is one of my personal favorite photos, and I loved editing this. So let's start with the tone curves, hit up the mid-tones. For this photo, this part is what I want to focus on. So let's bring down the shadows a bit, just to make it contrasted. Okay, you can even bring it down a bit more, and then give it that little bit of an edge with the shadows. Highlights, you can bring down a bit, or down. Yeah, let's bring it down, just to make the sky appear a little better. Okay, then let's move on to our blacks. Bring that down so that you can get these mountains to stand out against the contrasting light over here. Bring down your shadows. Once you can see it starts to stand out a bit more. Bring up your highlights a bit. Bring up your whites. Bring up your contrast. Contrast it's pretty much subjective. You can decide. If you like playing with the contrast, it's your decision. I like adding the contrast just a little bit, not too much. So now once again, photo looks good, but it's not perfect yet. So let's bring up the vibrance and the saturation a bit, just to get that perfect feel. So let's go once again to this panel over here, the saturation, and play with our colors a bit. Let's play with our orange, red, our yellows. You can see this is what we want. We want this to stand out. Okay. But you can push it even more a little bit. But once again, that's going to differ from photo to photo. You just have to use your eyes. It's simple. That's editing. Okay. Bring out the shadows a bit more. Now we can see it's starting to stand out. Getting a good photo. There are a little bit of tweaks you can do, but I'm pretty happy with that. If we hit Y, we can see there's a huge difference here. Okay, if you go into the next photo, we can do the same thing. Okay. Okay. Bring down those shadows, bring up the midtones, bring down the blacks, bring up the shadows, bring up the highlights, bring up the contrast, and once again here, bring up the shadows, this last control point over here, because it just gives you that little bit of mood. And once again, you can play a bit more. But just using this tone curve, you can already make the photo pop. Okay, let's go on to this one. Now, most of these have been landscape shots, so let's use this in a portrait. For all you portrait photographers out there, this can also be a big use. Just by lifting this mid-tones, we can see the camera is starting to pop because of the blacks. Okay, that's a bit too much. Okay, so we want it like that. We want a bit of a balance. Make another control point over there. Bring up. This is, again, this last control point is subjective to what you want. I personally love a bit of a mood. If you like more clean tones, then just leave it alone. Otherwise, bring it up. Now you can play with your blacks a bit, bring up the shadows, bring up the highlights just to bring him out a bit. Now he's looking a bit oversaturated, so we're just going to bring that down. Once again, a big tip that I can give you, if you play with the vibrance and saturation, if you go upwards, I won't suggest going over +6. It's just a personal tip, it will help you. And just a small touch on the saturation and vibrance can make a big difference. But once again, leave those for last. You do not want to touch them in the beginning. You can go to our split toning and say 6, 3, and there's a minor difference, but it makes a difference in the eye. We can play around with our contrast. Okay, so it's very simple. I mean, if you hit Y, you can see. Now, of course, this is only the basics of this. You can add your own personal feel to it, but just to get that pop, tone curve is the way to go. If you take this last photo, if you want to get this saturation right, this is a very important one. Okay, so now we can see what the tone curve does is it brings out your darks and your lights. Okay, so this mid-tones, now it makes the mountain pop because it's dark against the white or against the light background. Just bring this down a bit more, shadows over there, you got a nice image. Okay, now we can start playing, do what you need to do, play with your whites, whatever, just add that feel. Again, not too much. If you bring your blacks down too much, it's just not gonna work. You don't want to crush your blacks. That's what I see with a lot of guys. If they new into editing, they crush their blacks and it looks like a phone photo. So that's very important. And now with sunset shots, it's very important that you tackle your colors individually. So we've got a lot of colors going on here, so we want to lift them. We don't want to touch this, like you see it's just too much. So let's go with the reds, because I know there's a lot of red. There's a bit of orange, but not too much. A bit of yellow, a bit of blue. It gives that nice balance between your reds and your blues, and it just gives that nice feeling. And when we look at this, there's a big difference. I mean, there's still a lot you can do. You can bring down your blacks, you can bring up your contrast, but I'm pretty happy with it. and that's a secret. Use the tone curve. I know a lot of people when they start out they're scared, they don't know what the hell is this tone curve thing, but use it to your advantage. You can make your photos pop instantly. Using this to your advantage, you can easily stand out from the average photographer if you just use your tone curve and use the things that I've taught you today and just use it to your advantage. Don't go overboard with your editing. Find your style. The only way you're going to find your style is if you do this day in, day out. That's pretty much it for me today. It's a tone curve. You guys got it. If you use this in your photos from now on, tag me on your photos on Instagram and I'll check them out. Yeah, I'm very excited to see what you guys are going to do. Okay, cheers.